But there's a fascinating thing about tonight, right now. First of all, it is a Sabbath that is a special time on the Hebrew calendar called Shabbat Hagadol. This day is called the Great Sabbath right now. And that's when we didn't look at all these things to say, okay, we're going to reopen here. This was the time. But we are reopening Friday, this is the Sabbath, on the Great Sabbath. But a fascinating thing about this as well, there was actually a question as to when the Passover began. Because in Hebrew, it says, you shall keep it until the 14th day of the same month, and the whole congregation of Israel shall sacrifice it at twilight. You will kill it at twilight. Or in Hebrew, in between the evenings is what it says. Like around, it's taken to mean as sunset is approaching. But here's the thing, the Hebrew day begins when? At sunset the day before. So is Passover beginning the day that ends the 14th day or the night that begins the 14th day? You understand what I'm saying? Is it coming at the end of the 14th day at night, it's over, and now it's really the 15th day at sundown? Or is it happening on the eve the night before, which actually begins the 14th day? Which is it? Well, the standard thing is to accept that it's beginning the next day. It's beginning at the end of the 14th day. But not everybody saw it that way. In fact, it could even explain a mystery in the gospel, because the three gospels seem to speak of the Last Supper. It's a Passover, clearly. He said, I've earnestly desired to celebrate this Passover with you. But in the Gospel of John, it said he died when the lambs of Passover were being sacrificed, which would make it the next thing. So it is possible, number one, that Messiah chose to have his own Passover before the standard one. And it's possible also, since there were two ways of taking the ordinance, that the Last Supper was the Passover on the eve of the beginning of the 14th day, and Messiah died on the cross as the end of the 14th day was coming. You understand? Well, tonight is the eve of the 14th day. So it may very well be the exact anniversary on the Hebrew calendar of the Last Supper Passover. And we are doing this tonight. Tonight, the Friday, here it is. Now we normally, for those who have been here in the past, we normally had a plate for you and we did all the things together, but we can't do that. Instead, we can do this, which is the center of it. This is a small center. This is like this condensed into this. But it's not the same thing that we're used to, but it allows us to do it. So we're actually going to have the communion tonight from Passover, linked to Passover, most likely on the day commemorating the Last Supper Passover. That's what we're going to do. But what I want to do, we're going to partake of that at the end. But before that, I want to open up the mystery and meaning of what we're going to do in a way that most believers never get into. This will probably be the biggest build-up to the Lord's Supper we've ever had. And even with this little cup and little bread, it may be the most meaningful. What is this thing called the Lord's Supper? This is here representing the Lord's Supper, the communion that we're going to partake of. This table is representing the Passover. All these things are of Passover. Now, what is the Lord's Supper? What is communion? Consists of bread and the fruit of the vine, the grape juice or the wine here. In some denominations, as in Catholic, Orthodox, they believe the elements actually turn into the body of Messiah. The priest has that power. Other denominations believe that it is the actual body, Messiah, or that Messiah is present in it. Others see it as a remembrance. Why these interpretations? He said, this is my blood and this is my body. If you take that literally, it would seem to be that. But he also said, do this in remembrance of me. If it actually was him, we wouldn't have to remember, because this is him. It would be invoking something that is present, not a remembrance. But the key is actually Passover. This explains that. You see, the key is on Passover, you lift up the matzah and you say, this is the bread of affliction that our forefathers ate in the land of Egypt. Now, this is not the actual bread that was eaten thousands of years before. It's by saying it, it's saying this becomes the symbol tonight of that bread. And so that's how you speak in Passover. Messiah is a rabbi. And he's speaking that same way, saying that. Now, is he present in it? There is something about it. There is something supernatural about this. But he's speaking as in Passover, this represents my body. Now, some of you grew up and you were told about this. You grew up hearing about this as the Eucharist. And what is that about? Eucharist comes from a Greek word, Eucharistia, which means to give thanks. What does that have to do with this? Because on the night of the Last Supper, the Passover, he said a blessing. It says he lifted up the bread and he said a blessing. Now that is done in every Passover around the world. We even know what the blessing was. It's called the motzi. It's said over the bread of Passover. The exact words are Baruch atah. This is what he said. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Blessed are you, Lord God, King of the universe, who brings forth bread from the earth. This is what he said. So in the New Testament, it's called the blessing or giving thanks. And so it's called Eucharistia. So they took that and they called this the Eucharist. But it's really the blessing over it. Now, most Jewish people know about the motzi, but they don't know it's the same thing as the Eucharist. Most Catholics or others, they know about the Eucharist. They don't know it's actually a Hebrew blessing. And most Christians of all denominations don't realize the deep connections that this has to that, which we're going to open up tonight. You see, like many things of our faith, it was taken out of the original context. It was taken away from its roots. So for most believers, the Lord's Supper is just something kind of that came out of the blue, and the bread and the wine, yeah, of course. But it's missing something here.